from the table now, or maybe wait till after my testimony. If that's okay, I'll just let them come up
Okay.
after I present opening comments.
Okay. Before you get started, Senator Wise, Chairman Wise, will be speaking to Senate Committee Substitute 1. Is there a motion to adopt substitute? We have a motion. We have a second. This is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nays. Ayes have it. So you are free to proceed on Senate Committee Substitute 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 138. It's entitled the Teaching American Principles Act. The purpose of the legislation before you is to preserve alignment of middle and high school standards with American principles of equality, freedom, and personal agency. One of the first questions that I've got is, Senator Wise, why did you file this particular type of bill? Why do we need this at this time of our country's situation, our time of our state, questions such as that? So amid national and statewide tensions that seem to be further dividing us, I'm drafted a bill with the intent to unify. And let's season our state's academic standards with American principles and encourage teachers to help students explore original core documents, analyze historical and current issues and controversies, and develop as the next generation of Kentucky citizens. Our entire country is facing a lack of knowledge when it comes to civics education. This is at no fault to our educators, but rather a reflection on a growing concern that Americans are falling behind in understanding the importance of civics and government education. The National Assessment of Educational Progress reports show that less than a quarter of American 12th graders are proficient in civics, and only 12% are proficient in U.S. history. I saw this firsthand as an American government professor when I taught undergrads at Campbellsville University. And even at our university, when setting and revising general education core requirements, one of the first areas on a chopping block to eliminate or severely diminish seemed to be American government, away from college courses. Although the new K-12 social studies standards have been upgraded to quality performance-based terminology, both educators and parents have complained that the standards seem to lack specific reference to key people, key events, key struggles, and key challenges, and also ongoing successes that have forged American democratic principles of equality, freedom, and individual rights. Secondly, the COVID-19 pandemic has engaged parent involvement more into their child or their children's education than possibly ever before. And it's a shame that it took a pandemic for this to become a reality. But with students having to learn remotely, parents listening to instructions, or parents helping to assist more in homework assignments, today's parents and their voice are being heard across the entire United States. Over this past year, community constituents, educators, parents, and students alike have very passionately and articulately shared sample student assignments that they perceive are increasingly about indoctrination into a particular worldview rather than education that equips students to think critically. They have also shared their frustration in seeking the source of curriculum authority and where parents can get engaged in the process. I'm sure many of you have had similar questions asked. Where do I go? Where do I turn to? Parents are showing up more at local school board meetings, asking questions, and in which in return could possibly lead to more parents running for elected positions. Third, it seems that growing concerns about critical theories in education have yielded national dialogue that has degenerated into hostile monologues, state legislation that is being based on a negative list of don'ts, and a media spin that is more cynical than informative, all of which have further divided America rather than to unify us. Members of this committee in the summer saw such meetings that we were having here. House Education Committee, the Senate took their chance of looking at issues such as this. And as we contemplated these issues during that 2021 interim, we discovered 1776 Unites. And we invited one of their main spokesperson, if you were here for that committee meeting, Mr. Ian Rowe, to share his perspective and his wisdom with the Interim Joint Committee on Education. 1776 Unites is a project of the Woodson Center that represents a nonpartisan and intellectually diverse alliance of writers, thinkers, and activists focused on solutions to our country's greatest challenges in education, culture, and upward mobility. If you remember from our committee meeting with Mr. Rowe, he provided us with the need to reinforce principles for young people that will help guide them to become agents of their own uplift and transformation, embracing the true founding values of our country. And many of you came to me after that meeting saying, thank you for bringing in a national spokesperson such as him to let us listen and let us learn. After reviewing national issues in our local testimony, listening and engaging in more conversations with shareholders, collecting artifacts, surrounding these issues, I've just It has informed our efforts to draft and unify Kentuckians around our Teaching America Principles Act. In addition, since filing this piece of legislation, we've also received valuable feedback, valuable suggestions to address legitimate concerns and alleviate misunderstandings with what was originally filed. I want to thank every constituent and every shareholder who has came to my office, messaged me, or contacted me and provided me with some wonderful suggestions that I've incorporated into the committee sub that you have before you today. I fielded numerous emails, phone calls, in-person meetings, virtual meetings, online social media messages, some very kind, very professional, but also others who would rather call me a racist, a fascist, for daring to file a bill such as this. And I will say, if you know me and the work that I've done in these chambers, I will listen and I will work. I welcome everyone to have came to my office and also provide feedback. Consequently, I've drafted the committee sub before you to help clarify my further willingness to listen and to clarify my intent through responsive revisions to the following issues. I'm going to walk you through the committee sub at this time, line by line. The issue is what I will bring up first and what I have addressed in the committee sub from the original bill. Once again, this is based off of social studies teachers, shareholders, and others who've shared with me concerns. Page 2, lines 12 through 17. We focused on the state academic standards. Without invading local curriculum and instruction, we simply chose to extend the existing elementary standards, which we currently have, to middle and high school, which says students should, quote, describe the impact of foundational documents on the development of the United States. We will continue to rely on our instructors to create and align their lessons and curricula with the academic standards and help students think critically as they explore and draw their own conclusions about original core American documents. The second most commonly identified issue that I received, Senate Bill 138 limits and restricts the discussion of controversial aspects of history and historical oppression of a particular group, people, race, ethnicity, class, etc. I refer also to page 2 in the committee sub of lines 4 through 11. Although this absolutely was not the original intent of the bill, I will agree that the bill's original wording was confusing. Therefore, to clarify my intent for more open classroom discussion, the committee sub deletes the word, quote, impartial regarding discussion of controversial aspects of history or oppression of groups of people. As someone who's taught in the educational classroom before, I welcome those discussions. I want those discussions to be there. Parents also want those discussions. So we do not want to tell a teacher, and by removing the word impartial, to still encourage discussion of current events, as controversial as they may or may not be. The next issue, Senate Bill 138 interferes with our obligation to teach current events and hinders the students' exploration of competing perspectives that yields their own informed conclusions. I refer you to page 4, lines 18 through 25. This was an excellent point that I appreciate all the educators and others that came before to help rectify the possibly confusing language in the original document. So I propose the following replacement wording regarding controversial current events and topics And I borrowed this from language already in statute from both the Educational Professional Standards Board, EPSB, and the Kentucky School Board Association, KSBA. I eliminated this phrase, quote, an employee shall not be compelled to teach current topics or explore them from diverse and continuing perspectives without giving deference to any one perspective. I've replaced it with the paragraph in lines 18 through 25, as you can see there, which states, any instruction or instructional materials on current controversial topics related to public policy or social affairs provided to public school or public charter school students, regardless of whether the individual that provides the instruction is employed by the local school district or public charter school, shall be A, within the range of knowledge, understanding, age, and maturity of the students receiving the instruction, and B, relevant, objective, non-discriminatory, and respectful to the differing perspectives of students. Age appropriate. Numerous parents have contacted me. I get a lot because of being the education chairman. I get that. It's part of the job when you assume the chair. You hear from people, not just within your district, of assignments that parents were seeing to certain grade levels saying this is simply not appropriate for my child, a lot being at an elementary school level. We understand as the student progresses, as they learn, books change, literature can change, but there's a growing concern among many parents in this Commonwealth about some of the assignments that were being given. We're simply saying that they should be knowledgeable, understanding, and age-appropriate maturity of the students. The next issue, Senate Bill 138 impedes civic learning about situations that students may encounter in their lives, such as the legislative policy process. Many students or teachers were asking, does this mean I can't bring my students down to Frankfort to meet you, Senator Wise? No. Look in the sub, page 4, beginning with line 26. I've continued to receive complaints from many students that are being offered grades, extra credit, or incentives to lobby publicly for certain policies, promote current social issues, or support specific political candidates. I'm aware that this may not be the norm for all. Completely understand that. But we have had many conversations of this being done. However, I'm proposing the following replacement language that preserves the teacher's obligation to help students engage in such activities, but allows some choice for the student or for the parents of a minor. That being, an employee of a public school district or public charter school shall not violate a student's First Amendment rights by requiring or incentivizing a student to advocate in a civic space on behalf of a perspective with which the student or the parent or guardian of a minor they do not agree with. The last issue, most commonly received. Senate Bill 138 diminishes employee professional growth, inhibiting frank conversations about injustices for particular groups of people. I refer to page 5, lines 3 through 5. Staff members have came to us and told us they understand the need for such frank conversations, plus cultural competency and equity training. However, there are a growing number of numerous complaints of coercion and perceived indoctrination. Thus, I propose the following revisions in the bill. An employee of a local school district or public charter school shall not be required to engage in training, orientation, or therapy that coerces the employee to stereotype any group of people. I once again want to thank everyone who has provided me months of informative feedback. And while some would choose to perpetuate and almost celebrate some growing national division, it's time to be the model state. It's time to find common ground. It's time to unify around what makes us Americans. Our founding fathers chose not to create another monarchy, but did they settle for a total democracy? Nor did they settle for a total democracy. Instead, they chose to create a republic where we submit to the authority of a document and not fallible people. I can certainly say that the documents referenced in this bill are not perfect by any means, but they are the best documents crafted by any nation in the world. And those who have crafted many of these documents were not perfect, but they were individuals who provided at that time a voice and a pen of what our country would look like. Representing the voices I've heard across the state, it is my resolve to pass legislation that aligns true North American principles with state standards to allow educators and instructors in nurturing settings to help the next generation of Kentuckians explore foundational core documents that reveal how Americans have agreed, disagreed, and how we have progressed on the meaning of freedom and self-government. You know, the best compliment I ever got at an end of a course semester from my past or current students was, Professor Wise, I never knew what political party affiliation you were while I had you as a professor. Not until I signed to run for office did my students not know I was Republican. Because in my classroom, I would personally not bring my ideology into a classroom setting. My courses are not about me. My courses are about students. And I can't say this is the case for all. Unfortunately, I know that it's not. Parents and students want to be talked to. They do not want to be preached to. And I think this bill finds a common ground to do so. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for allowing me to fully explain everything that's in the sub. Thank you, committee members, for allowing me to indulge into the conversation. At this time, I would welcome my guests who may want to testify in support of Senate Bill 138, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Wise. If they would come forward, I'm going to limit their testimony to about 1 minute.
I understand.
And so we can have time for others to speak who are signed up against. If you would identify yourself for the record when you've done that, please proceed. And I'm going to be pretty tight with the 1 minute.
My name is Beanie Gohegan. I thank you so much for having me here today to speak. I cannot even begin to tell you how strange it is that I am sitting here today. 3 years ago, I was a very content substitute teacher, church and school volunteer, wife to my high school sweetheart, and mother of 4 teenagers. Virtual school changed at least some of that. Instead of subbing, I was home watching my 2 youngest children's high school classes online, and my contentment faded. As I talked to more parents around Kentucky, I realized that I was not alone. We were frustrated by what our students were being taught and very concerned with what was not being taught. We followed proper protocol by communicating with the teachers and appealing to the school board. In the process, we were mocked, heckled, and slandered on social media. Fast forward to today and the need for Senate Bill 138. This bill is a way to ensure all children are educated, not indoctrinated by certain political and social beliefs, while also ensuring they are exposed to the rich content of the many amazing speeches, letters, and documents that tell the complicated story of America. I've read and learned more about the founding and functioning of our country in recent years than ever before. The more I learn, the greater my appreciation is for those who came before me and how unique our experience is as Americans.
That is time. If you could wrap it up or finish if you can. And I apologize. It's a tight committee today. Please proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Timothy King. I'm a 15-year-old student. Up until this year, I was a student of JCPS. I'm currently a student at Moregrace Christian Academy. As a result of many events since 2020, I became aware of some issues in my education. I came to realize that there was a certain mentality taught and encouraged in public schools. In my experience, victimhood was allowed and often praised. This could lead to students feeling like they are not able to achieve their best. In my opinion, students of JCPS are being taught critical race theory as an excuse for why certain students of different races are not held to the same standards or expectations. Such as African American students are being taught that they are not able to achieve certain goals like going to college, having a stable family, and succeeding in a good career because of the white man. As an African American male, my family taught me if I wanted to achieve anything, all I have to do is put my faith in God and put my mind in it. Excuse me. While public schools are creating victimhood mentality amongst some students, I believe they should be instilling the principle that every student can achieve their best and live victorious lives if they set their minds to it, and that nobody can stop them. Thank you.
That was awesome. You spoke really quickly.
He was very good. Mr. Chairman, I will say we were supposed to have another student from Atherton. Is that correct, Beanie, that we're going to have today? If you would just quickly say in terms of, for the record.
So I actually have 2 other students who were going to speak, but the type of culture that's been created, they were afraid to speak because of retaliation that they would get from school. So they both typed up their statements, and I made copies for everybody. You guys can read them.
If you want to leave those, we will make copies for everyone on the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your presentation. At this time, we will bring forward those who are signed up to speak against. And we are really, really tight on time. So what I'm going to do is same format. We will do 1 minute apiece. And since we have some people up here already, if you would just, when you're ready, identify yourselves for the record. Is this one group together? Okay, gotcha. Just go ahead, proceed, identify yourself for the record, and proceed.
My name's Donnie Wilkerson. I teach history and social studies in Jamestown, Kentucky. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to be here today. Although the committee substitute is a marked improvement to the original wording, Senate Bill 138 is nevertheless unnecessary. Much like the transgender bill last week, this is legislation in search of a problem. You'll recall that I came before the interim committee to talk about the horrors of the social studies standards. They remain, but my concerns with the inadequacies of the standards pale in comparison to the slippery slope embraced by Senate Bill 138. Though some of the more egregious wording has been removed, this substitute should still raise serious alarm bells to those who cherish academic freedom. Who will comprise the new book police perusing our shelves for volumes they deem not relevant, not objective enough, or disrespectful to contending perspectives? Must I now remove time-honored scholarly works from my fifth grade shelves because they're written outside the range of knowledge of my students? Virtually every document mentioned in Section 138 are primary sources we currently use in our classroom, but almost all of them.
1 minute, if you could.
Let me wrap up then. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, and the 14th Amendment says that the state shall make no law abridging the privileges of the United States. Please reject this unnecessary and unconstitutional bill. Choose instead the path of freedom and knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to testify today.
What is your name?
My name is Verna Cahoon, and I chair the Education Committee.
Ma'am,
of the
if you
League
could
of Women
press
Voters.
that button on the microphone there until it turns green.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Verna Cahoon, and I chair the Education Committee of the League of Women Voters of Kentucky. And our president, Fran Wagner, asked me to speak for the League today. I would also like to say that this statement was written before the amendment was read. Based on the lasting commitment, the League of Women Voters of Kentucky opposes Senate Bill 138. We believe this bill would impair robust engagement with American history and the effective preparation of young Kentuckians for citizenship and democracy. We also oppose legislating how teachers, trained and dedicated professionals, conduct instructions. Students bring varied strengths, cultures, and experiences to the classroom, and serving all students well requires nimble, flexible, responsive teaching. Success for all learners cannot be built on legislative mandates that hamper teachers' ability to adjust instruction to the needs of every student by imposing tight constraints that do not reflect realities in the classroom.
That's about 1 minute. Thank you. I know it's a lot to say, and I apologize for
We
the
do
tight
have a
schedule.
lot to say, but I also would like to say that we hope this amendment that brought forth today will cover some of our concerns.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Renee Sarton, and I'm the Jefferson Branch Chair for the National Association of Social Workers, and I am also an associate professor who works at Campbellsville University on the Louisville's campus. I'm here before you this afternoon to discuss Senate Bill 138, which is a classroom censorship. This bill concerns me because it limits both important historical events as well as discussions on current events in real time. History is at times uncomfortable. Confronting the past is painful, but we as educators are not holding our students responsible for the actions of our ancestors. Ignoring the past or only telling partial truth does a disservice to everyone. It's an injustice to those whose story is being forgotten or falsified, and it does intellectual harm to those who are not exposed to the truth. Would you prefer that educators teach a view of history that does not even look like what really happened or why it happened, or more importantly, how it affects us all today? That's education. Our children need to know how America was built on the backs of slaves. Ignoring the truth about slavery in America and the systemic discrimination that comes from that means we are not forced to question the historical cruelty inflicted on people of color. In Senate Bill 138, you want to teach the American principles. Among these are the values that all people are created equal. But all of us in this room know that all people are not created equal. We have students in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If we could have different groups come up. could, please identify yourself for the record. Proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Eberwein. I am a junior at DuPont Manual High School. I've been in Jefferson County Public Schools since kindergarten. I'm here today to use my voice as a student to oppose what I think is one of the most destructive bills to education in Kentucky. Contrary to its cited name, this bill's goals are not to teach American principles, but to create a curriculum that is insufficient and whitewashed. The idea that an institution that was codified in law, reaffirmed through Supreme Court cases such as Dred Scott, and existed for hundreds of years in the United States is unimportant and doesn't define this country in many ways is ignorant. Refusing to acknowledge American history of upholding the institution of slavery and segregation is destructive to our national healing and the continuing fight for equality. I want to conclude by making it clear to this committee that my education is not a political tool to be messed with for partisan gain. The history I want to be taught is the truth. The purpose of history should be to educate students about the past and to learn from the mistakes of the past. Providing an insufficient history that washes away anything unsavory or attempts to explain it away as having no bearing on the present to make students comfortable is a substandard education. Kentucky students deserve the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Anything less is an insult to the students of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bree Woods. I'm a junior at DuPont Manual High School, and I'm in our Journalism and Communications program. I'm against Senate Bill 138. I believe this bill will negatively impact my education, as well as my fellow students. I know that I won't be in public school for much longer, but I feel compelled to ensure the quality of education students who come after me receive. The biggest reason why I feel 138 will negatively impact my education is because it discourages teachers and students from having truthful conversations about current and past events. As a JNC student at my school, this would directly harm the integrity and caliber of curriculum I and other students are taught. The first lesson I had in the first journalism class I took was the importance of reporting the truth. Yes, there are multiple sides to every story, but an undeniable fact is that there's a correct side to most stories. I believe that if we always take an objective view towards history, we won't discover and uncover the deep wrongs our country must right. How will my generation begin to create a brighter future if we don't critique the systems that keep our present so dim?
It's about 1 minute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon to you. My name is Dr. Stephen D. Nifley Jr. I'm the Chief Diversity Officer for Spalding University, as well as an Associate Professor in the School of Professional Psychology. It was once said that those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. Without an honest reflection on the bad as well as the good circumstances that have created this country, we will condemn our youth to repeating the challenges of the past when it comes to racial and ethnic minorities, women, and also individuals with disabilities. The cost of not remembering will have a negative impact on our youth in regards to their mental health, academic achievement, as well as their behavior management difficulties. A study by Sturm and colleagues found that we spend over $12 billion a year on youth mental health-related issues. Imagine if we were to have conversations that could facilitate a different process when it comes to the mental health challenges that our folks are facing. The science has been very clear that when it comes to our youth of color, as well as our white youth, those who are able to have more honest conversations around race and racism are more likely to have more and better mental health well-being compared to those who don't. Additionally, there's been significant research to show that those who are able to have conversations around race and racism are more likely to have better academic achievement as well. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could now have another set of people to come forward. Whenever you are ready, whoever wants to go first.
I'll go. Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Beverly Darrington Moore. I have a broad and deep history as an educator and as a researcher, as well as being on the school board. And I'm honored to speak to you today, but I want to point out that I have not been able to, I've only heard about this amendment from Senator Wise, And it sounds like the major concerns of so many of us about the infringements on the right to speak, freedom to speak, have been taken care of. So I want to skip to the one thing I didn't hear anything about, which is that we already have there are more than 43,000 teachers in Kentucky, 4,300 something. And it's bound to happen that a few of them are going to make mistakes. A few of them might not use the proper methods. But we already have the structure and the professional personnel in place to deal with that. It's the responsibility of the principal to make sure the teachers are doing the right thing. It's the responsibility of the subject supervisors. It's the responsibility of the superintendent. And they have the help of the Kentucky Department of Education, which provides all the tools and the guidance in how to provide the latest and the best in educational methods.
That's 1 minute. For the record, your name
I'm
and
sorry.
school board again?
Beverly Darrington Moore.
Moore?
Moore, M-O-O-R-E.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I hope you cover that last part too. Thanks.
Mrs. Moore, I'm sorry, you misunderstood my question. What school board do you represent?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you asked for my name.
I thought you answered it. I'm sorry, too.
I am not on the school board now. I was on the Jefferson County Public School Board.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Please proceed.
Hi, I'm Tim Holman. I'd first like to thank the committee for allowing me the opportunity to speak on Senate Bill 138. I'm in my 23rd year of teaching and currently teach government and politics at DuPont Manual High School. I've always tried to provide my students with a diverse and balanced instruction, and I believe that in part is the intention of this bill. But as a teacher of government, I've often seen good intentions result in unintended consequences, particularly when it's coming from the top down. I certainly believe that the government should play a role in our life, but that role should be predominantly determined close to home, and not as dictates and mandates from big government. I noticed one of the documents mandated by this bill was a speech by Ronald Reagan, who was largely elected on the promise of devolution of decision-making to local entities. I don't want to see well-intentioned legislation ultimately harm instruction, harm teachers, and ultimately harm kids. I've looked quickly at some of the amendments, and I especially am happy about the removal of impartial. I had a whole section about that, and I believe that's moving in the right direction. I also think that Part 3, subsection 5B, that has been changed is positive, especially the part that, but I do have concerns about the phrasing of within the range, knowledge, and understanding age and maturity of the students, because I do think that is a very relative kind of factor that could be potentially problematic.
That's about 1 minute.
While I commend the Senate for a more thoughtful iteration of this bill than the House version, I do worry that as the bills are merged, many of the problematic elements of the House version could be combined with the Senate version. And I will speak to that, hopefully, next week.
Thank you.
I hope clearing my throat doesn't go towards the 1 minute.
It does not.
My name is Chuck Eddy. I'm speaking for myself as a supporter of good public education. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Chairman Wise and committee members, including my own senator. I am firmly opposed to SB 138. I'm opposed to censorship of teaching in the classroom. We need to teach all American history, not just feel-good American history. I have Jewish family members and friends who lost family in the Nazi Holocaust. Our country was not without dishonor. In 1939, the SS St. Louis with 937 Jews from Europe were turned away from the United States. They were turned away from several countries. They went back to Europe. Many of them were likely lost in the Holocaust. Members of my own family owned slaves in North Carolina. I'm not proud of it, but I want to remember it. Never again should we have racism in America. It concerns me deeply that you're going to dictate that teachers should say things like anti-Semitism, genocide against Native Americans, slavery, and racism go against what our country has always stood for. Unfortunately, that's simply not true. We have great aspirations as Americans, and I'm very proud to be an American. But part of my pride comes from our ability to learn from our past mistakes, not ignoring them. Please vote no on 138. I would recommend that this committee not vote on this bill at all today. The public needs to be able to see the exact wording on the committee substitute. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will have to stop right there on people signed up against. Are you ready? I've got. got to be really tight. I've got to let the senators have their questions answered as well. If you could be real tight, these are the last two.
My name is Lucy Waterbury. I'm a site-based decision-making council member in Fayette County. I'm also a PTSA leader and a concerned parent. I want to thank Senator Wise for the changes to the bill. It was dramatically improved. I do, and I think these other speakers have done an amazing job. But I will say that I do have concerns as a parent about specifically A Time for Choosing by Ronald Reagan. The Reagan of my youth was the Gorbachev, don't tear down this wall, right? Why we've chosen a political speech that basically glorifies Barry Goldwater is a little bit beyond me. Barry Goldwater voted against the Civil Rights Bill, and he was against school integration. So I'm struggling a bit to understand why we would put in statute that particular piece. But I will let King speak for me, because Martin Luther King, which I am ecstatic about a letter from the Birmingham jail being in there, amazing, great. But here's what King had to say about Barry Goldwater at that time. I think context is important, right? King said of Goldwater's voting record, while not himself a racist, Mr. Goldwater articulates a philosophy which gives aid and comfort to the racists. King feared that Goldwater's position that civil rights must be left, by and large, to the states meant leaving it to the Wallaces and the Barnetts. Electing Goldwater, King said, would plunge the country into a dark night of social disruption. So if this is the counter to a letter from Birmingham jail, I think we need to be really concerned about putting in statute this Reagan speech, which was a political election speech in which Goldwater was soundly defeated by Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marcus Ray. Excuse me. My name is Marcus Ray. I'm the president for the Kentucky State Conference of NAACP branches, and we oppose this bill because it creates a gatekeeper for education and the things that we discuss in the classroom. The First Amendment gives us freedom of speech, and I think education falls under that. And I know we're short for time, so I'll submit the rest of this to you in writing so we can move on.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Next, we have questions. Any questions from senators on the committee on this bill? I am totally shocked that we don't have any questions from senators. So, are those?
Mr. Chairman.
Leave it to Senator Neal to have a question.
I just cannot allow us not to be questioning this piece. First of all, I want
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Senator Wise for being open, inviting in terms of the discussion of Senate Bill 138, which he knows I found totally objectionable. But he did listen, and I appreciated that. And I noticed that in this committee substitute, there are some significant changes with respect to that. I guess my concern, Senator Wise, is what the party that testified said about us sort of dictating from the top and that she can be handled. I mean, we got trained professionals that, some people don't have some respect for them, but I got total confidence in them because they turned out a son of mine who's excelled in the system, But here's the deal. Some of these words concern me, but I just want to ask you, and I'm not going to take a bunch of your time, but this word regarding non-discriminatory, what does that mean in the it says here on page 4, 24, relating to any instructional materials or current controversial topics related, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on to subsection B, as it relates to shall be relevant, objective, non-discriminatory. What does that mean in the context of what we're talking about?
Senator, what we're talking about there is just the instructional materials that are being provided. If it's a controversial topic, that they are non-discriminatory in nature towards any. It could be towards any type of person. That we have that in statute, that we put that there just to be respectful to any differing perspectives. Discriminatory, but we thought the word non-discriminatory would be a better word to use in that particular section.
Okay, and the reason why I just picked that out, because I can't go through these little things I could pick and peck at, but the reason I raised that question is that I'm not sure and maybe it's my deficiency. I'm not sure what that means in the context of things. I would ask you just look back at that.
And Senator, you've got my word. I'll be happy to work with you after we leave the committee today,
All
just like we have before on a lot of issues, and see if there's some things we can improve on.
Again, I want to commend you on your openness and your
Thank you, sir.
your ears.
Thank you, sir. It's
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciated.
Thank you, Senator
Please
Neal.
tell my wife that also, sir.
That'll have to be the last word because Senator Carroll has to present his bill next. Do we have a motion on SB 138 as amended by the proposed committee substitute 1? Senator Meredith, I believe, got to you first. Senator Carroll. Senator Givens is a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Senator Givens. Senator Harper Angel.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
First of all, I want to say that the chairman, education chairman, has done so much to improve education in Kentucky, but I have major concerns about this piece of legislation. Our teachers must not be censored, and our history must not be skewed, and therefore I vote no.
Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I appreciate the progress that's been made so far on this, and I think there are some excellent pieces here. Part of the problem I have just looking at this, though, is we're looking at, okay, we're going to make sure we cover these 24 items, and in, 7 years of schooling, we can get way more than that done. So I know that there's going to be potential for more education. My concern in this whole space is that there's not enough educating going on, and so we are leaving a lot of gaping holes on how much extra our students going to learn. But I feel like this is good because this is at least a start to what should be on things like assessments. Some of these I don't even know what they are, and I had to go start reading them. I did object to the Ronald Reagan speech, and I read it. I thought it was actually really interesting. I wouldn't have put it on the list, but it was actually a really interesting read. So just go read it because it's really interesting. Thanks.
How did you vote? What was your vote?
I've explained my yes vote, and I apologize if I forgot a key word in that sentence.
Senator Stivers.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to explain my yes vote.
Please proceed.
Yeah, I look across at this group and the chair and several of the members and things we've worked on. In fact, the earlier presentation, and Senator Neal knows what we've tried to deal with Simmons College, the creation of a different educational dynamic. And I appreciate the discussion here. But I also think that individuals who have come up to testify, a former school board member, a faculty member at DuPont Manual, would go back and read the articles of the Courier-Journal, who are really not my friends. In fact, they're not a bastion of conservatism, who reported not on systemic racism, but blatant racism at the magnet schools in Louisville. And are these individuals in front of the JCPS talking about how they were catering to the rich and connected to the detriment of the African American student, which to me is abhorrent.
Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my no vote, please.
Please proceed.
I'd like to address my comments really to the broader audience and more importantly to the people of Kentucky. First, I want to begin by saying I know Senator Wise. He's a well-intentioned, good individual. I've been very complimentary of him in the past and continue to be very complimentary of him. And so there should be no ill intent addressed to him regarding his sponsorship of this bill. Secondly, I do have to say that I don't know why we create this boogeyman of critical race theory, and now we're buying into that here in Kentucky, because we don't teach critical race theory here in our K-12 schools. And I don't know why we have to color the boogeyman of critical race theory black. I'm really troubled by that because that just feeds into racism that exists all across this country. History is very valuable. It's a very valuable subject. It instructs us about the good and bad of our past. And it provides us with knowledge and insight of what we need to do better so we can enhance the hopes and dreams for our future. And I don't think we should ever whitewash history. We've got to tell it like it is so we understand that. We got to talk about slavery and the oppression that occurs. We got to talk about the Trail of Tears and the horrors that Native Americans faced. We got to talk about the Holocaust in hopes that we never see that again. I mean, those are things that happened in our past. And, they're there. They're not the best part of who we are, but we got to know about that so we can be better individuals going forward. Finally, and I accept what President Stiver said, but I just do not believe. I can't buy into the fact that, and I'm a official elected by Lexington, but I just don't believe that Jefferson County Public Schools teaches black students that they are not good enough to go to college. I just find that too incredulous. I'm just sorry. I just find that too incredulous to accept. For all those reasons, Mr. Chair, this is why I vote no on this legislation, and I just hope that Kentucky, as we move forward in our education system, can do a lot better than Senate Bill 138 today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator West?
Aye.
Senator Wilson? Chair Wise?
Mr. Chairman, real quick, briefly explain my yes vote.
Yes.
I do hope that those that testify today will look at the sub, especially page 2, lines 4 through 11, of where we're not telling teachers what they can and cannot teach and what our students can and cannot learn. So I hope the sub does alleviate a lot of the concerns that those that testified today against the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Senator Neal, if you could keep it real tight, please.
Mr. Chairman, all due respect, this is a very important subject. I'm sure I will be allotted at least a half an hour to explain. No, the reason why I wanted to explain my no vote was because of the comment made by Senator Stivers. What we got to understand here is that we do have a society that is not separated from how we got to where we are. There are dynamics. Even on the floor of the Senate, we run into people that have different and cultural perspectives and they embrace various ideals that are not congruent one to the other, for instance. But here's the point, Mr. Chairman. The point is that we have a society that has problems rooted in our past. They are visited upon us now. So we can come together, face those things, and then we can work toward a better society. Because after all, what we're talking about is a more perfect union. That's what this is, the great experiment. So I think if we go into this with respect for each other and not be afraid of the past, discuss it openly and accurately and as truly as we can be, then I think we have an opportunity to be better as a country, better in relationship to each other, more understanding, and of course, our future is rooted not in us, it's rooted in our young people. They came here and spoke today, and I want to applaud each and one of them, regardless of what their expression was, for stepping up to the plate and letting us know how they feel about this. So I want to commend Senator Wise for his effort here, but I really do think it's unnecessary. I think it's part of a continuum. We need to let our systems work through. I think we're on the right track. I think the future is bright for us, contrary to what some people think. Maybe it's because I'm an internal optimist, but I think we got the greatest country in the United States of America is the greatest country, and we have the greatest opportunity to lead the world, and I think we're doing it now. And I think if we respect each other going forward, if we speak the truth, if we don't hide the fact that we have negatives but strive for positives, then we can be even better than we are now. We'll achieve a more perfect union. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Neal, for keeping it tight. The Senate Bill 138 passes with a vote of 9 aye votes and 4 nay votes and shall be reported favorably. Thank you, Chairman Wise. We have before us now Senator Carroll